If you are inadmissible for any reasons, that may mean that you are not eligible to adjust your status and you may require a waiver. It is very important that you read each of these 81 questions closely to see whether you must answer a yes or a no. Hello everyone, today we're going to discuss Form I-485 application to register permanent residence or adjust status, what each of the sections mean, and how to decipher what sort of information you should be placing on this application. I will break down the form section by section, helping you to understand what sort of information the government or USCIS, United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, is asking of you from this form. I will also discuss what this form is used for, so make sure to watch until the end to find out how it may impact your case. Please make sure to like this video so that others on YouTube can find it. If you have not already done so, make sure to subscribe to my channel and click the notification so that you can join me when I go live and watch my latest videos. The first thing we will talk about is what is the Form I-485 application to register permanent residence or adjust status, who may file it, and what is the purpose of it. The next thing we will do is break down the form section by section so you can understand exactly what the government is asking of you so that you can provide the most complete and accurate information. The Form I-485 application to register permanent residence or adjust status is used by persons who are currently inside the U.S. to apply for permanent residence. When you are permanent residents, you receive something called a green card, which is the card that shows that you are currently allowed to live and work in the U.S. on a permanent basis. There are many different categories through which you can adjust your status to achieve permanent residence by using the Form I-485. Each of these categories has certain eligibility requirements and also has certain prohibitions on what can make you eligible or not in order to achieve permanent residence in the United States. In addition, each of these separate categories will also contain with it separate documentary requirements that you must fulfill in order to make sure that your application is accepted and registered properly. You may file this application as either a principal applicant or as a derivative applicant. Either way, you will most likely need to file your own separate application when you are applying as either a principal or as a derivative applicant. The principal applicant is usually the named beneficiary of an immigrant petition or someone who is otherwise qualified to adjust status. A derivative applicant is the principal applicant's spouse or child. A derivative applicant is usually considered a derivative because they do not have their own underlying immigrant petition. However, they may be able to apply using the same category as the principal. Under U.S. immigration law, you are considered a child when you are under 21 years of age. However, if you turn 21 or older while your application is pending, you must check the Child Status Protection Act to make sure you find out whether you are still eligible to be considered a derivative applicant. In general, you must wait for the underlying immigrant visa petition to be approved before you can file the I-485. These immigrant visa petitions include the I-130, the I-140, or the I-360. However, there are certain cases where you may be eligible to file both your underlying immigrant visa petition plus the I-485 concurrently. These rules and the eligibility requirements can be found on the USCIS website regarding eligibility and the visa bulletin, and I'm including a link in the description below. Also, you must understand that you may not be eligible to file the I-485 based on whether you are inadmissible. If you are inadmissible, you may be eligible to get your inadmissibility waived by filing certain applications. However, you must check the rules to find out whether a waiver exists for your inadmissibility. If not, your application may be denied. Now that you know the purpose of the I-485 and who may be eligible to file it, let's walk through each of the sections of this form so you can better understand what sort of information the government is asking of you. Part 1 of the I-485 application to register permanent residence or adjust status is the information about you, and that means the person applying for permanent residence. As you can see in the first section, you must put down your current legal name. And it is very important that you do not provide a nickname or an incomplete first name. However, right below, you must put down all other names you have used since birth. And it is very important to put down in this section any nicknames, aliases, or other legal names that you may have had in the past. If you need any additional space at any time on any section of this form, you can always include an addendum with this additional information. The next part is your date of birth. You must put down in this section your actual date of birth, and as you can see, the note right below the date of birth section, number 5, says, in addition to providing your actual date of birth, include any other dates of birth you have used in connection with any legal names or non-legal names in the space provided in Part 14. For this, you may wish to use an addendum to include additional information. Next, you will be required to put down your sex, which is either male or female, and no other option is given at this time, as well as your city or town of birth. You will also be asked to put down your country of citizenship or nationality. Now, for those of you who may not be clear on this, your country of nationality is the country normally to which you hold a passport. If you do hold multiple nationalities, you may decide to put down all nationalities in this section or use the nationality of the passport that you use to enter the US, making sure to disclose to USCIS all of your other nationalities. Next, number 10 in Part 1 is the alien registration number. Now, if you have never filed for any immigration application in the past, or if you have never been in the immigration court system, then you may not have an alien registration number. However, if you have ever had any sort of application with immigration, then it is likely that you already have an alien registration number, and you should attempt to put down this number in this space. Now, be warned that USCIS may still issue you a new alien number even if you put down your previously held one. Do not be alarmed. They will be able to connect all of your files together regardless. Next, you will be required to put down all this other information, including your mailing and or safe mailing address. Now, your US mailing address does not necessarily need to be your physical address. However, you must make sure to put down your physical address if it is the only address that you have. In addition, if you are filing any applications underneath VAWA or for a T or U visa, then you may be able to put down an alternate or safe mailing address instead. Now next, when it comes to the recent immigration history, you must use the passport number used at the last arrival or the travel document number used at the last arrival. Normally, the travel document is used by someone when they do not hold a passport because they are stateless. You must make sure to put down all this information as well as the visa number of the visa that you used to enter the country if you did in fact use a visa. Next, after putting down your date of arrival and the place where you arrived, you will be asked a series of questions about your manner of entry and whether you were inspected at a port of entry and admitted, or whether you were paroled, or whether you came into the US without admission or parole. Make sure to answer these questions truthfully, making sure to look up your I-94 number, which you may be able to look up online, or find it in a card inside your passport, and make sure to put down the date until which you were allowed to stay. Continuing on page 3, you will see that you will then have to put down your current immigration status if it has changed since your last arrival. And of course, if you do not hold any current immigration status, you may wish to put down that you have none. Now, moving on to part 2, you will then need to choose which category of filing you are making. And as you can see, there are several different categories, including categories underneath family-based, employment-based, special immigrant, asylee or refugee, human trafficking victim or crime victim, special programs based on certain public laws, and other various additional options. If you are not filing underneath Section 245I, then you will need to answer this question appropriately. Next, when they ask for the principal applicant and information about your immigrant category, this is where you would put down the information for your underlying immigrant visa application if you have any, and this would really be applicable only where you are not filing concurrently. If you are filing your application concurrently, then you would not have this information. And then following this section, you'll be required to put down the principal applicant's information if you are filing the I-485 as a derivative applicant. Now, in Part 3, you will be required to answer whether you have ever applied for an immigrant visa to obtain permanent residence status at a U.S. embassy or U.S. consulate abroad. And if you have done so, then you'll be required to put down the information about the location of the consulate and whether this application was approved, refused, denied, or withdrawn. The next section will go on to continue to ask what your address history was. And for this, it is very important that you provide the physical addresses for every single place that you have lived for the past 5 years. Wherever you need extra space, make sure to use an additional page to insert that information. Next, You will then be asked to provide your employment history for the past 5 years. Again, please make sure that all of your information is true and correct and that it reaches back to the past 5 years. And even if there is not enough space on the form, make sure to use an additional sheet to provide an addendum of the information. Now, after this section in Part 4, you will be required to provide information about your parents. Now, what if you do not have the complete information for each of your parents? Well, you may be able to put down unknown if you do not have it, but do make a best attempt at giving as much information as you can. The next section in Part 5 is about your marital history. You will need to make sure you answer all of these questions truthfully and provide all information on your current marriage and any prior marriages. Even if you are divorced for a very long time, it is very important that you provide this information. Next, in Part 6, you will be required to provide information on your children. Now, even if your children are adults or even if they are not inside the US, it is very important that you provide all the information on all of your known children wherever they are around the world, whether they are alive, whether they are deceased, or whether they are over 21 years of age. In Part 7, you will then be required to provide your biographic information, which includes questions on ethnicity and race, your eye color, your height, and your weight. Now, Part 8 is very, very important. Part 8 are all the questions regarding inadmissibility. If you are inadmissible for any reasons, that may mean that you are not eligible to adjust your status and you may require a waiver. It is very important that you read each of these 81 questions closely to see whether you must answer a yes or a no. If you do happen to answer a yes to any of them, you may wish to consult with an attorney to make sure that you are eligible for adjustment of status. Also, just a word of advice, whenever USCIS is asking about any of these inadmissibilities, they're asking about the full span of your life. So for example, even if you got arrested 20 years ago, you must still disclose it and you must still answer affirmatively to the question regarding arrest history. Part 10 of the I-485 is your statement that everything is true and correct, and you will be required to sign this application and date it. If you have had an interpreter, they will need to fill out section 11, and if you have an attorney, your attorney or preparer will fill out section 12. Part 13 is the part that you will sign at the interview. Now, this form is a very complicated form, and each of the questions actually holds a great deal of significance regarding your eligibility for adjustment of status. If you need help with this application, and indeed, if you need help with the adjustment of status process overall, give us a call so we can help you through the process. Did you know that you will be asked many questions at your marriage green card interview? Watch my video to find out more. I'm Moumita Rahman. See you next time.